Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to another episode of Leadership Tidbits with Coach T. Wilson. I am your host and leadership mentor, Tywauna Wilson. I am excited, as I am each and every Tuesday, to have another amazing mentor, another amazing guest in our studio tonight who will be sharing on an awesome topic. So, before I introduce our mentor for tonight, come on in into our virtual learning laboratory. Introduce yourself and let us know where you're coming in from so that we can welcome you in properly. So come on in and introduce yourself. We always want to know who's tuning in and where. And come in and share this broadcast out so that we can have others to join us in the virtual learning laboratory as well. So I'll give you a minute to come in and introduce yourselves and let us know so that we can highlight you. But tonight we have a very special guest who I am super excited about. This young lady is on fire. She's a young lady and she is out here doing her thing. So, Miss Kellina Powell, and did I say your name right?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, so Kellina Powell, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining. So, a little bit about Kellina. Kellina is a young entrepreneur and she might tell us her age. I'm not sure yet, but she loves to help people with their personal growth and educate others about the deaf community. Little do people know, Kellina is actually hard of hearing. She became deaf at the age of 4, but she's used that as her superpower to be awesome. She recently graduated with a psychology degree and is now starting her own online coaching business while finishing working on her book. So tell me about that. I mean, that's awesome stuff. So welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me once again. Yeah, I do have a lot going on. It's a very interesting journey. So I am a job advocacy. I am a mental health coach for people who have a disability, specialized in self-esteem, depression, and anxiety. Just because myself, when I was growing up, I never had anyone that looked like me, so I wanted to give my community an opportunity to have a coach in their field, which is kind of cool. And my book is definitely coming out. I'm hopefully trying to get it released by May 1st. And yeah, and also too, I can't forget this. I have a YouTube, but if you really want to check out more about me, like deeper and like funny questions, you're more than welcome to check out my YouTube channel.
Okay. So, and we'll make sure we get that YouTube channel address before you get up out of the studio. But we do have somebody tuning in. So we do have Belinda Preston Cash from Trotwood, and she is an EAP DOT counselor. So, hi, Miss Belinda. It is good to see you. And so she is in the Trotwood, Dayton, Ohio area. So welcome. We also have Dwellin checking in from Phoenix, Arizona. So I'm excited to see you checking in as well. And Colleen, I didn't ask you where you were from. I usually do that off camera,
Oh,
but where are you coming in from?
I am literally from Canada, Toronto.
See, I told you I bring in some international guests. So Kalina is coming to us from Toronto, Canada. Woohoo!
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited about that. So others, you can continue to come on in, share this broadcast out. And Kellina, I know that you have a very impactful story that you want to tell us, and tell us your story and how we can be advocates and be more aware so that we're able to be better advocates, and so that others that are like you won't feel like that they are growing up alone or don't have an advocate on their side.
Definitely. Honestly, for people who want to be more advocates, want to be more inclusive for people who are deaf, the number one thing I would say, try to see if there's closed caption on any platform, because that definitely really be useful. As well, especially if you're interacting with someone who is deaf, always keep in mind that you have to face to face to them so that they can read your lips, because it's very important for us to understand what you're saying and reading your lips. So a lot of time, if you were to, like, I don't know, cover your mouth, I wouldn't hear the whole sentence of what you're saying. I may hear little things, but I won't hear the whole sentence. And if you can, pick up a little bit of sign language, just a little bit, something simple and basic, like hello, how are you, okay, thank you, little things like that. I don't expect anybody to go out the way, but if you can do a little basic, that'd be really helpful a lot of time, especially during COVID right now and the max, because a lot of us have a hard time understanding. So that
Mhm.
would definitely be helpful. And yeah.
And I'm happy that you mentioned that, because I know that at work, and we do a lot of Zoom, a lot of Teams meeting, and I knew I was having you on as a guest, and it made me think, because at work a lot of times people are not on camera, and we don't necessarily have the transcript on either. So just being aware of all of our team members and how we can be more equitable. And so, simple things like that, like, I don't want to be on camera today, but we don't know who might be on our team that's counting on seeing our face to be able to really be engaged in the meeting. So that was a great point. So, how did you? I know your story. You became deaf at the age of 4, and like, how was that journey for you growing up, and then making that transition to being able to help others?
Um, the transition was so huge because it would I was hearing different voices versus what I was normally hearing versus when I became deaf and having a new technology in my ears. So it was very like open eyed kind of.
Hmm.
But it's more of like kind of like really like shocking because I didn't think my life could change in 1 second. How I became deaf was actually from an ear infection. I don't know how I got the infection. I ended up getting it, and my doctor prescribed me a ear drop, and so I wouldn't know. And so the next day we went to my family doctor, and so I went to daycare, and then apparently the staff members did either one of the things. They either didn't put out the right eardrop, or they put too much in my ears. One of the two, don't know. And that same day when I went home, I became deaf. My mom was calling me in front of the TV, and I couldn't hear my mom. My mom thought I was joking. She thought I was 4 years old. 4 years old like to play around, but no, I was not joking. I was like, "Oh, mom, I can't hear." And my mom panicked. She called my grandma. Luckily, my grandma is a nurse. She like literally rushed home from the hospital, tried to figure out what was going on. My grandma's okay, like Kalina, not joking. She cannot hear me. And so we called my family doctor. My family doctor said, okay, come in the next day. So we went there. My family doctor said, okay, this is so weird. Like Kalina could not hear me. So my family doctor did little things in my ear, like couple testing. My doctor said, okay, shh, Kalina can't hear. Like, how is she deaf in 1 day? What's in the eardrop? And so that is how I became deaf from infection out to the daycare did not do their job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So since then I was a whole mess. I was a mess because 4 years old, don't know what's going on. I was super overwhelming with so many people I was seeing, so many doctors, appointments, trying to figure it out. what the next step is for me, basically. And so I went to audiologist, and they said for me to get hearing aids, or I could get a cochlear implant. The cochlear implant is where you do surgery. So when my family heard, I was like, hell no, like surgery, no, for 4 years old, hell no. And I think some of us can be a little like sketchy when it comes to surgery, especially surgery in your ears. Can you imagine doing surgery in your ears? They're like, no. So my family, they were like, heck no. And so yeah, so I didn't do that at all. I ended up just getting a hearing aid. And when I went to school, now that I'm getting older, I had to go to school. So school was very much more challenging because I was in two different schools. I was in the deaf school, and I went to hearing school half the time. So it was kind of cool because I was able to learn how to communicate with two different community and learn how to interact with both community, which is kind of cool. But at the same time, it's super hard to, I guess, make my way in the community, especially the hearing community, because they never really, not one person I met someone that is deaf. So I'm always a new person to them. So I'm like, are you kidding? I'm like, what? So, like, for me, I'm such an open person, such a social butterfly. If you ask me a simple thing, oh, what you need, I will tell you, no problem. And so I kind of built that confidence a little bit when I went to both community. And unfortunately, I stopped going to the deaf school because it was too far for me. So unfortunately, I had to end up going to the hearing school full time. That was a huge challenge for me because I felt like I wasn't able to um, kind of find myself again because there was not anybody else like me in the school, in the hearing school. So I found it very difficult and challenging to be myself again. And I had to rebuild my confidence, make a whole new find again. And so it was very challenging. I got bullied, of course, a lot of times. Bullies that would come after me, even though I bullied them a little bit back. So, oops, little kids. So, and I bullied them back a little bit, but luckily, my two best friends I had at the time, they both always stand up for me, and they were like, okay, let's go, let's go. They would always cheer me up no matter what. It was very cute. And now that I'm getting older, high school comes, and I think a lot of us do not like high school. And high school definitely not my favorite, but I started to develop a lot more and be aware of my needs are, especially being in school. And it was super important for me to understand that I'm going to have to face some challenges, but also be okay to ask for help. And a lot of time, I feel like if I ask for help, people might walk all over me.
Mm-hmm.
It was very challenging that time, and the point where my guidance counselor didn't want me to succeed. She actually did not put my grade in when it was post-secondary time to apply for application. The university called me and said, your grades are not in. I'm like, what are you talking about? And my guidance counselor didn't put my grade in, and she didn't think that I was capable of going to university. And so that lesson really taught me that there are going to be people that's going to bring you down and doesn't want to succeed. And that was a big opening call for me to realize that I have to really kick butt and get out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that. And so now I'm in university, got it, woohoo. And
Ooh.
yeah, so honestly, I feel like my guidance counselor really taught me to fight harder and push better. And
Mm-hmm.
really taught me that you can do whatever you can as long as you put your mind into it. And then that's how I started to start my entrepreneurship and realize that because of my path I had with all these negative things that happened to me, and I realized that if I keep pushing, I would get into it. Until that one day, I actually finally got a job, first job. It was a big park at Canada's Wonderland,
Mm-hmm.
super exciting, and a little boy approached me, super cute, and it was just so cute. The part where he was just like, he was like, Miss, I have something to show you. I'm like, oh, are you lost? It was a big park full of kids. And then he's like, no, like, I'm deaf too. I have hearing aids. I'm like, no way. And because I realized that my hair was in a ponytail, and his mom came to me full of joy, and she was kind of crying, but not really, but she was full of joy. And she's like,
Mm-hmm.
didn't you do something like that for my son? Like, my son never met anyone like himself in the hearing community. And didn't you do something like that? You're going to make a difference in the world, even though you just a little thing like that. And I didn't realize. And I'm like, wow. So what if I actually took initiative and advocate for my community and teach them how to be inclusive and how to advocate for themselves in the Haitian community. And that's why I started my journey.
Wow. That's so inspirational. And it reminds me when I hear Dr. Cheryl Wood talk, she always say you need to show up. You need to come to the front of the room. You never know who's waiting for you. And that story was, you were just there. Like you were there, and that young boy really needed to see you in that moment. And so that's just powerful within itself, especially for our young leaders, our young girls, our young boys that might have self-esteem issues. And they're like, I don't know if I can make a difference. I don't know if I have that it power, but everybody has that it power in their own right. You are meant to touch somebody. Now, I don't know who that somebody is, but everybody is meant to touch somebody. So I think that's awesome. You just showing up. So, how did you build your grit and your resilience? Because, like you said, you were going to, two different schools. One school was for the deaf community, and one school was for those where, wasn't for the deaf community. So, finding that balance, but yet being determined to say, listen, I know this is a difficult journey, but I can still do this. Like, where did you get that grit, that resilience? Where did you get that to be able to push forward?
I would say my family. I would say my family, especially my grandma. My grandma is actually an immigrant from St. Lucia.
Hmm.
So she said, listen, I did not come into this new country for you to, for someone else to tell you that you can't go far. And that's the one thing she told me. And she's like, unless you want to go back home with me. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm okay. and
So
then
no,
that's when
no,
I,
no.
and that's when I was like, no, I don't want to go back. I'm like, no. And then my grandma said, that's what I mean. Be grateful for how far you gone. Because that little thing, the baby step you did to get this far,
Hmm.
does make a difference. You just don't see it because you're too into that one moment and you don't look at the bigger picture. And then
Hmm.
that's when I realized and said, oh, my grandma's right. Like, I do need to look at the bigger picture and be grateful how far, not just me came through, but also my family. And I realized too, I'm actually the first generation that graduated from university in my family. So that kind of, that, yeah. So it's definitely that my family really invested in me a lot to get what I need to be. And I felt without my family, I would not be here right now. They all pushed me, and especially my grandma. Like my grandma would like, "You need to go to school. Let's go," and she helped me build that confidence. And so, like my grandma always told me her story back home to kind of make me remember that you're here for a reason. God gave you the gift. Even if you are deaf, doesn't mean you can't do anything. Yes, you may need to work harder, but doesn't mean you can't do it.
Right. Right. Absolutely. That's awesome. I definitely understand that. So congratulations on graduating. I'm a first generation college student and graduate in my family. So kudos to you. That's a journey within itself, being the first and trying to figure it out. So that's awesome. Kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
So I do want to get back to that college experience, but we have a few more people checking in, and I just want to highlight them into our virtual learning studio tonight. So Courtney is coming in to us, and she said she's just tuning in for her weekly tidbit. So thank you so much, Courtney. And then we have Anthony who's tuning in. He's one of my mentors in the Standout Leader Academy. And he just said he's happy to be here and he has an awesome story as well. And Belinda said that was an excellent story that you talked about with the young boy. So again, that's why it's even more important for us to show up even when we don't want to or don't feel like it or don't even, like is it gonna matter? So let's get back to that college experience. So how was that? I know you said that you went through your grade school and it was like, okay, this is different, this is an adjustment, high school had its challenges within itself as you're maturing and how high schoolers are and everything that comes with that. Let's talk about this college. How was that maneuvering through? Because that's a whole nother system within itself. How was that in maneuvering through it?
It was, I would say the first year was really challenging to transition from high school to university was totally different. I didn't expect a lot of homework. I was so overwhelmed. I was like, I'm gonna cry, I'm gonna drop out. And my mom said, I dare you do that. And I'm like, I can't do this. It was just unexpected. I did not expect that much work. My first year, I met a lot of great friends. I was very social butterfly. I noticed that when you go to college and university, I felt like they were more educated on disability support, inclusion, and like accommodation. I feel like they were more understanding than high school. Don't know why. It kind of felt weird about that. I guess because high school is a lot smaller. I can say.
Mhm.
I guess because university and college they want because they're so open. It's a big school. Everybody's coming in, and it was a big school to be honest. I was so lost for like 2 weeks straight. I was like, "Oh my god, I cannot find my class." The point where I give up sometimes, and I'm like, "Oh my god." And honestly, luckily, I had a great note taker for each of my classes, so I would gain accommodation just because the lectures are so big. It's literally like a movie theater. So there's
Mhm.
times where I can't get a front seat or the middle seat, and then it's just so big. And I was like, oh my god, okay, I can't hear very well. I did have challenge to hear professors because they were not like equipment for them to wear, so that I can
Mhm.
hear them. Unfortunately, just because a lot of professors felt uncomfortable wearing it, they just felt like I'm probably gonna cheat or record or I don't know. A lot of professional weird times. Yeah, like I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. And so I instead I just had a note taker. They were very more accommodating about it. All my note taker was really helpful, synchronous. Until I would say my third year, I met this one professor. He's actually deaf too. Very interesting because he's teaching a lecture and the lecture with the math class. I hate math class. And it was funny, he was teaching, he's like, 1 second, my hearing aid battery is dying. He changed his hearing aid battery in front of the whole class. And I was like, you just did what? And I had no idea he was deaf at all until he just said that one day. And I was like, oh my god. And I felt because I was in that class and I was so motivated and I was always in that class and I hate math class and that was math class. And I just
Mhm.
showed up every single class and just talked to him and asked him how did he do it? How do you have the confidence to talk in a huge movie theater like this? How and then he was just saying there's someone like you and me, we need to improve the deaf community. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, that's so true. And ever since I met that professor, honestly, I just realized that I think it's time for me to get my stuff out there and definitely get going with the deaf community, bring them more awareness about the deaf community.
Mhm.
I definitely knew it was time after I spoke to that professor.
Wow. So you said it was time for you. You that went to college and you had a mentor and that professor who was like, listen, come to the front of the room, Kellina. It's time for you to
Yeah.
come to the front of the room and be that champion. And so how did you get started and what does that look like of being an advocate for the deaf community?
I literally started with my Instagram platform. It was
Mhm.
just Instagram, got myself out there. I did a lot of crazy real, relatable real, and then that's when I started building community. People started finding me. I found people, and we started talking and get to know each other. And then we created a Facebook group with everybody, and everybody brought their friends and their friends. And I've been into a lot of networking a room, and then I ended up having a business mentor kind of walked me through how she became an international speaker. So I actually walked with her through everything that she done. So she gave me a lot of tips, advice, resources I could do, and I followed every one of them. And then that's how I became big right now.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. And so in that community, is it do you find that the community is it just people that are deaf, or is it people that are deaf and friends of the community?
I have three different community because I so if the I honestly the one community I mean is the deaf community, and then
Mhm.
there's the disability community, and then there's the people who are parents, teachers, or allies for the deaf community or disability community. Yeah, yeah. So there's three different community I'm in. So.
Wow. Talk about a little bit about your business endeavor. So I know that you are a young rising star and you are an entrepreneur, you are a speaker and coach. Talk a little bit about that and what does that look like?
So right now, I actually just started kicking off my business off the ground now. So I am a mental health coach for people who have disability, but I am open to other people as well, not just disability. So that was my main focus was for disability, but also I'm open for more too. However, so that looking good so far. And so I have like a very few clients, which is very interesting because some of the clients are actually my friends, and then some clients are from Instagram, and some clients are parents and students, which is very interesting. And yeah, so that's definitely that. And then my international speaker, I spoke in UK, London, Australia, um, the island, the Caribbean island, and one in Africa as well. So it's very fascinating to see different people, meet different people across the globe,
Mhm.
and just getting the message out there about the deaf awareness. And then I'm also writing a book. So my book is called Every Day I Am Just Deaf. So it's mixed with poetry and biography. It's about me being deaf in the hearing community, so that way the hearing community can get a perspective what it's like to be deaf in the hearing community.
Wow. That seems awesome. So, when will the book be done? I'm an avid reader, so I love books. I love poetry. So, you have to keep me posted on when the book will be finished. Well, that's quite the journey. So, I know you said you get a lot of students and teachers and parents that reach out. Is it some of the things that they reach out, and I'm not asking for any specifics to your client, but are some of the concerns just getting acclimated to the culture as it is now, or dealing with what's happening in society, or all kind of different issues?
It all talks to me about different issues like within society, how to be inclusive, ask the advice about like their child hearing loss, what they can do, what
Mhm.
my opinion, how did my mom go with it, what were the resources because there are not a lot of resources for people who are deaf, and there's very few resources for disability community.
Mhm.
So that's where everybody started coming asking me questions.
Got it. What kind of impact do you feel like COVID and the pandemic had on all of this for the disability community and deaf
I
community?
say technology was number one for us. Technology. It was because everybody was using technology. Not everything was accessible. Not everybody was able to get access to it because of low employment. Lack of resources. Family members can't come around anymore because of COVID. It was hard for a lot of those who are live alone, especially those who live alone. They don't really have support, and especially appointments are getting booked now. You can't even go to your appointment now. Everything is booked, and you have to wait a month advance. Or it's just crazy, and it did really impact a lot on the disability community because we were not able to have the support had we wish to do versus
Mhm.
COVID because we were able to go outside and do things on our own. But now it's like we can't do much because for those who have disability, we are more high risk to catch COVID than those non-disability. So there's people that weren't able to do anything had they wish to do.
Got it. Do you feel like we're making strides in the right direction? Are we making progress? So if you just think about, maybe 5 years ago and where we are today, do you feel like we are way further along in a positive direction, or we still kind of It's like, we still got opportunities to grow.
Whew, that's a good question. I would say honestly 50-50. The reason why I said 50-50, I know people be like, what are you talking about, Kellina? I'm like 50-50 because social media, I would say the other half, social media, I give it a credit. Social media slowly getting there. Slowly. That's the other 50, okay? The other half is that people are starting to see like on social media, like, oh wow, I didn't even know. Okay, there's more people out there are advocating. Like, oh wow, it's just that social media took so long to be accessible, and it's so sad that they had to wait until the pandemic hit to be accessible because everybody's on technology. So that was really sad because it's like, why do we need to tell you guys how to be accessible? It's not supposed to be everyday thing, but unfortunately, it's not. And so that's why I said 50-50. And second thing is too, when you go for a walk, I know it's a lot of time, especially those who are deaf, they cannot understand anybody through the max. So people are not educated about that. So it's just like, okay, where's the other education coming in? So third thing, the education system are not inclusive about the disability community because there's no class or courses that are being taught about us. And it's unfortunate because a lot of students, especially those who have disability, are being separated by the normal students. And it's not fair for the normal students not to collaborate or even know how to interact with someone who have a disability in case if they were to go into the real world after they graduate. So they won't have no idea because they never been taught that in school. So that's something that needs to be changed. From 5 years to now, it's the same thing, which is ridiculous. It's like, hello, and even too, like even ASL courses or any other course that relates to disability, there's none in high school. No high school. Can't remember that one time I learned something in high school that's acceptable besides university. So it's like, are you serious? Like these these kids are our next generation. Like we should be educating the younger generation too, because they're our future. So that's why I would say 50-50.
Okay, that's fair. That makes a lot of sense. I know for me, and I've been a professional for quite some time now in working in my industry, nearly 20 years. And I can tell you that, you know, we might get some training on it now, included in a diversity, equity, and inclusion workshop or course if your organization offers it and it's just a tiny piece. And so sometimes you're right. I think we're making progress, but definitely not as much. And so as I knew you were coming on, and it reminded me of that, having the meetings and people not being on camera and having, if you just do stuff via conference call, that could be a barrier. That could be where you're not being equitable in that case of thinking about everybody. What is something that you think that we should know? So people that want to be avid supporters or advocates, what is something that we should know? Maybe we think we know it, but we don't know as much as we think.
I would say the number one thing is don't expect every deaf person knows how to sign language. I get that a lot. I know a lot of people come to me like, "Hey, you're deaf, so how come you don't know how to do sign language?" And I'm like, "Whoa, no, not every deaf person you meet knows how to sign language." And number two, I just want to keep people like be aware of being consistent in terms of putting your closed caption. Be consistent. I know it's annoying. I know it's hard, but if you realize that probably 80% of people who use their cell phone may not be have their sound on. I noticed that with a lot of people. They rather read closed caption, they rather read the reading, and I noticed that. I'm like, oh, really interesting. And third thing is, I just wanted to say, don't be afraid to ask questions. I noticed a lot of people be afraid to ask me questions about certain things, especially my hand loss. They're like, oh, like, Tanina, I don't know if it's a dumb question. There's no thing, such thing as a dumb question. You didn't know. Like, hey, I'm not aware of this, but if you don't mind me asking you something, instead of saying a dumb question, to me, it's like, I have received a dumb question before. Trust me, you probably don't even have a dumb question. So I just want to put it out there for people who are watching. Don't be afraid to ask questions. For us, disability community people, we will appreciate that you even asking us questions because you are showing us that you have a respect and you're willing to accommodate us by asking us. So that's why I just wanted to put it out there.
That makes sense. Ask and you shall receive the answer. So don't assume. Ask. Ask the question. And so, viewers out there, if you have some questions for Kellina, you could drop those in the chat, and we will answer those while we are here on live. So I want to give you an opportunity to engage in the discussion as well. So I always ask my guests about as they are going through their walks of life about their uh, failures. You know, sometimes as young people that may watch this show, they see, well, Kellina has a huge following on Instagram. She got 3 Facebook communities. She done talked in Africa, London, Canada, you name it. She done done all of this.
All over
And
the world.
right, like it's everything's been good. Like she's taken her, perceived disadvantaged background, and now here, ta-da! So, what would you say has been, a failure or learning lesson that you have had to overcome or you had on your journey? Because we all have something that is like, okay, that would, yeah.
I don't think we all like talking about that. Okay. The one thing I learned through my journey is being very open minded because not everybody's gonna have the same knowledge as you or education. Not nobody is ever below you or above you. Everybody goes to the same speed. It's really a matter of fact of asking for help or find a mentor that the lifestyle that you want. Literally, that's how it works. And I feel like people are so caught up in the oh, get rich fast or get rich like I don't know. I just tell people I don't believe in that. The reason for that is because once you rich fast, things gonna go quick fast. I rather take my time and get to what I need to be. And I've learned that a lot too. And I learned that it's okay to ask for help. It's important to find mentor or coach to guide you to where you want to be. And I realized that always stick to your budget. Don't feel like you need to go way over your budget just because that person has like that, you know? Sometimes it's very important to stick to your budget because if you don't stick to your budget, then what if something was to happen next and you can't afford it? Or let's say something better comes in a way, then you realize that you spent all your money on that mentor where you could just spend all that money on a course. And that's something I learned a lot through my journey. It's like I should have just spent some money on a course instead of a mentor or something else. So that's something I learned during my journey.
That's a very important one, especially for our people who are thinking about entrepreneurship out there, going off and doing your own thing, and you hear that, you got freedom, you'll have more time than you'll ever need, and you'll make all this money and all of that, and it's all possible. But yeah, the entrepreneur, you can make a lot of mistakes, especially if you don't know. You could spend money on things that you don't need. You can invest in people that's probably not the right fit at that time for you or not a fit at all. And sometimes just seeking the answers with no clear path can have you spending money that you don't have as well. So that's a very good point. So that's good that you learned that lesson early. But one of the things that you said that I thought was really good is that it sounds like you are committed though to investing in yourself and your development and growth.
Yes, I am committed, 100%.
I think that's important. That's one of the things that I can stress enough is that, in order to go to the next level in your life, in your career, in your personal life, to have what you want or what you feel that you desire, you are going to have to invest in yourself. That is the investment in you is the only thing that will grow and grow and grow. It's the only thing that it doesn't matter if the pandemic hit, it doesn't matter if your employer say don't come back, we don't need you no more. Your investment is yourself is the only sustainable thing. So what do you when you invest in yourself, what is your favorite personal growth tools or ways to invest in yourself?
I would say definitely in a lot of networking events for, that are either free or you pay for. I felt like with those events, it really taught me a lot more about my confidence talking to people randomly. Like, hello, my name is Kellina, because you have to do that in the entrepreneurship. And I felt like with having those events, it really does help me build my confidence. It really does taught me how to talk, not talking so less confident than how I am right now. And I would say networking events is my number one personal growth that I actually overcome. It's my favorite thing because I love networking with people. I love learning different ideas and different, field interests I may not even know of. I'm like, oh, you are this? Oh, that's so cool. Like, I didn't even think of that, and I didn't realize how this world is changing. Like anybody can get a job online. Like you don't even need a full time job. Like you can have a part time job and you can do this full time. And I need realize that there's so many new unique jobs that you can have, not just like back in the day where you need to become a doctor, firefighter, or this. But now like you can literally become anything you want now, and it's just so crazy. And I'm like, whoa, there's a lot of job opportunities in there, and I want people to know that um, there's so many ways to make money now.
That's true. That's true. Especially if you got the knowledge and expertise, and believe it or not, most people they have what they need to make $1 million or whatever it is that they want. They just don't know it. And sometimes you think that some of the information that you have is common knowledge, and it's not. Just because it comes easy to you doesn't mean that it is common knowledge. So I think that's important. And you are getting out here networking, that's an essential skill. Because everybody don't have it. Everybody don't have that ability to network and to go into different rooms and introduce themselves. So that definitely takes confidence and a self-awareness too.
It is. It is. It took me like probably a good 2 months to get used to it. Because I networked with one lady, and she helped me with my website actually, and I was just like little things like that can actually get me far in life. And that's when I realized I need to really start speaking up and meet new people because you never know when you start speaking up and meet other people. You just never know where they would take you. You just never know.
Absolutely. So Dwellin said this was a very great story. Kalina, I got the power pow.
Thank you. Thank
And you said you were a young entrepreneur. You want to tell like what is your age? I mean, if you don't feel comfortable sharing, you don't have to. I know women don't like to tell their age, but since that you was young, like what's young?
For me, coming up next, we'll definitely try to get my coaching business internationally. Definitely get into organization for people who have disability and the deaf community internationally. That'd be really great. Definitely start doing maybe more technology for the disability community, maybe create an app for them. I'm thinking of creating an app for them. It'd be really cool. Something fun, but not too handful. And who knows, maybe I will open a first deaf school in Canada. We'll see what happens.
Nice. Well, put it into the atmosphere, and I believe you can do it. You have that grit, that resilience. I think you can do whatever it is that you desire to do. So before our time get away from us, I want to make sure that people are able to connect with you. So how can people get and stay connected with you?
So I definitely would love the people can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm trying to get used to using it, to be honest. And second thing, people can follow me on my Instagram, which is Jeff Queen Boss. And if you do want to have a quick conversation with me, I have a 15-minute call on my website, which is KellinaEmpowerment.com.
Okay. So you have Kellina's information. If you want to reach out to her, make sure that you go Deaf Queen Boss on
Yeah.
social media. It says she the boss, the Deaf Queen Boss on social media. So make sure you get and stay connected with her. She's a young person that's out here doing some awesome stuff and should be supported. So make sure that that you do that. So I like to ask all of my guests before we wrap up, because I believe in giving practical tips for people to be able to use, whether it's their personal life, whether it's their professional life, or in their business. So, what tip or tips would you want to leave with the viewers so that they can be empowered or inspire and also be better advocates for the deaf and disability communities?
I just want to say that don't be afraid to use your voice to empower other people. Just because you feel like it's not going to work or you think it's not going to make a benefit, but overall, always use your voice. You never know when tomorrow comes. What I mean by that, tomorrow, you never know when God will call you home. Always use your voice.
That's the truth. That is the truth. So using our voice, you are right about that. And so uh we'll make sure, well, and that we put her contact information in the chats so that you are able to follow her. Let's see, I think I got the social media channel. Let's make sure is that your social media?
No,
Okay. So that is her social media. So you are on there, and I will get the website. What's your website?
Kellina, uh,
Yep.
empowerment.com.
Let me know if I got this
Yep,
correct.
yep,
So you
perfect.
can go to KellinaEmpowerment.com or on the social media at Deaf Queen Boss.
I think that the Deaf Queen Boss is my Instagram and Kellina
Okay.
Powell on Facebook if people have Facebook.
Empowerment. I think I spelled that wrong. Let
Yeah,
me fix it.
you got it right.
Empowerment.com. I think I forgot an M. Empowerment. Is that it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, any closing remarks before we close the show out? Or viewing audience, do you have anything that you wanted to say in our last like few minutes? If so, you could drop it in the chat. So, Kellina, you said is the book coming out this year? Will
Yes.
your book? Okay.
Yeah, this year. My book will be coming out this year.
Okay. So we will stay tuned for that later this year. So if you know anybody that needs coaching services, that wants to have a coach and mentor, that resonates with them, and Kellina might be the person. So think about that as you are networking and in your own tribes. If you have somebody that might be struggling with some mental issues or health issues, or just trying to acclimate to the culture as it is today. Well, all right. This has been awesome, Kellina. I've had a good time with you tonight, learning more about you and your story, which is very inspirational. And I think you're doing some amazing, amazing things. So many blessings to you on your path, and kudos to your family for their support. I think that's awesome.
Thank you. You as well. Hope you have an amazing night.
Thank you so much. So, thank you so much, listening audience, for tuning in to this week's episode of Leadership Tidbits with Coach T. Wilson, where we had the amazing, awesome Kellina Powell. As Dwellin said, the power, Kellina, the power, Powell, with us tonight in our virtual learning laboratory. Tune in next week where we will have another amazing mentor. Make sure you share this broadcast out. Come back next week. Bring a friend. They too probably will be able to get some of these leadership tidbits. And until next time, my friends, I hope you have a super amazing week.